Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my spring TBR. So TBR stands for To Be Read. I do my TBRs a little bit differently than a lot of other booktubers. I do them seasonally. So the books I talk about in this video are going to cover the months of March, April, and May. Yes, March is almost over, not only at the time that I post this video, but when I'm filming it as well. I usually film my TBRs like mid-month through the first month, but this is actually even a little bit later than I normally do. If you don't know, I am currently pregnant and I'm still kind of like struggling to find the energy to make videos, and I'm behind on videos that I want to make and all of that, but I love making these videos, so even though it's a little bit late, here it is. For the past few TBRs, I've been trying to limit the number of books I talk about to 20 books, just because I don't usually read much more than like 15 or 16 books in 3 months. This TBR has 25 because I couldn't narrow it down. Honestly, there's a lot of new releases on this TBR because I accidentally went to NetGalley and Edelweiss a couple times over the last couple of months and requested a bunch of books. I got a little click happy. And then like some of the books are like new releases that it depends on like if my library gets them, or maybe they're like sequels and I need to read books that are before them. And some of them are also novellas, so that added to me kind of wanting to do more than 20. So honestly, this TBR is a bit of a mess. I know I'm not going to read all 25 of these books, but it's going to be really hard to pick which ones I do end up reading because I am excited about all of them. I will quickly touch base about my winter TBR, and then I'm going to talk about the books that I am currently reading or have already read in March. And then I'll talk a little bit about my TBR Jar Picks, which is also a little bit different this season than I have been doing them. And then I am going to have like a new section to my TBR that I haven't had before. I'm going to go over my Patreon book club picks because this is the first TBR that I've made after I started my Patreon book club. And then I will split the rest of my TBR up by genre, the vast majority of which are fantasy, but I do have some sci-fi. And then I have one thriller and one nonfiction on the list as well. And as always, there are timestamps in the description box in case you want to jump to any of those sections. Okay, enough of an intro. So real quick, my winter TBR, I read a total of 14 books over the winter. I only read one book in the winter that was not on my TBR, and that was The Borgia Apocalypse. I read that as like my very last thing in December because it was a screenplay and I needed one more book to meet my Goodreads goal of 52 books for the year of 2020. So I picked up that really short screenplay. But other than that, I did pretty good. I didn't read anything else that was not on my TBR. Okay, currently reading section. Like I said, I have finished a few things because it is close to the end of March right now. The first book that I finished in March was Fireborn by Rosaria Munda. And then I also finished The Wolf and the Whale by Jordana Max Brodsky. And then I just the other day finished Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb. And then the two books that I'm actually currently reading are The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. I am reading this because my friends Elliot Brooks and Jessie May, they do a monthly book, it's not a monthly book club, but like a buddy read, and they have different fantasy books, one for each month, and they do a live stream. And for March it is The Bone Ships, and that is a book that has been on my TBR for a really long time, and so I wanted to try and read it so that I could watch their live show. And then the other book that I'm currently reading is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. Okay, my TBR jar picks. So I have a TBR jar, it's here behind me. I have a long running list of books that I have pulled out of this jar, but I am kind of a mood reader sometimes. So it's just a running list and I try and like pick up a few every season. What I've recently started doing is putting 4 on my actual TBR to count as like out of the 20 or 25 books that I have on my TBR to like prioritize. So for the winter, these are the 4 books that I was wanting to prioritize, and I read 2 of them. I would like to be reading like 3 of these every season, like 1 a month, because I pull out 3 new books every season, so the list honestly is currently just getting longer and longer, but I don't care. it is what it is. And then you can see from the 2 books that I have left, one is The Wolf and the Whale, and I just said that I already read that. So that one, you know, got bumped to my spring TBR, so this TBR. And then also, I'm currently reading The Broken Girls. So the 2 that I tried to prioritize last season and didn't get to, I prioritized in March, and I have read one and am reading the other. So those 2 are both going to happen. And I've decided that other than these 2 books, I'm not prioritizing anything else from my TBR Jar Picks because, like I said, I had a lot of things I wanted to read and I couldn't narrow it down. So the 25 is including those 2, and I couldn't bring myself to add 2 more to prioritize. But I will, however, still include a clip that I will start in a second of me pulling out 3 new books from my TBR jar to add to my running list of books. Hey guys, it is time for me to pick out my new TBR jar picks for the spring TBR. Let's see. Got a Purple Star, which is a book that I put in 2020. Okay. I pulled out The Kitchen God's Wife by Amy Tan, which is a historical fiction book. I'm pretty sure all of her books are historical fiction. And I'm interested to see what I will think of this. I read Joy Luck Club when I was really young, like in the 6th grade, and I really enjoyed it. But the last book of hers I tried to read, which was this book, because I'm blanking on the name of it, I really didn't like. I DNF'd it. So we'll see what I think of The Kitchen God's Wife whenever I get around to reading it. Oh, one that I've already read, Promise of Blood by Brian McClellan. It's always nice when I pull out something I've already read. Oh, I got a Pink Star, which means it's one of my newer purchases from 2021. Oh, the Sandman audiobook. When I said 2021, I meant 2020. Because it's just now 2021 and I haven't added any TBR Jar stars. Anyways, at the end of 2020, I purchased the audiobook version of Sandman by Neil Gaiman. It has like a full cast narration. It was like an Audible exclusive that was recommended to me. So I'm very curious about this. I haven't read any Neil Gaiman yet, but maybe that'll be my first one. Oh, I pulled out one of my super old stars, which can always be hit or miss because this might be something I'm no longer interested in reading. Basically, these are stars from 2015 to 2018. It's one I still want to read. Oh my gosh, I'm super excited about this. I pulled out A Madness So Discreet by Mindy McGinnis. I'll probably save this one for the fall, but I definitely have been wanting to read more Mindy McGinnis, and this is one that I've heard really good things about. It's like a historical fiction, but it's about a woman who is in an insane asylum, I think. I just remember hearing a lot of good things about it, and I have always been really interested in it, so I'm super excited. That's probably the one that I'm the most excited about that I just pulled out of my TBR jar. Alright, back to the rest of my TBR video. Okay, so those are the 3 new books that I am adding to my list of TBR jar picks for me to pick from in the future. Next, I'm going to talk about my Patreon book club picks. I will link my announcement video for my book club down below, and you can also find a link to my Patreon page at the very bottom of my description box, and that explains like all the tiers and stuff as well. It's a book club with a private Discord. Like, you have to be a patron to be in the Discord, because that's where we talk about the books that we're reading, and that's where all the voting and things like that happen. And because I like to read from many different genres, the book club rotates genres. For March, April, and May, the genres that we are reading from are thriller, fantasy, and sci-fi. The March book I've already mentioned is The Broken Girls by Simone St. James, so that's our thriller book for March. The book that we're reading in April for our fantasy month is Jade City by Fonda Lee, which I'm really excited about. Mostly I've heard good things, but I've also heard some mixed things, and I have no idea where I'm gonna fall on the spectrum. And it is more of like an urban fantasy, which I don't always love, so I'm very curious, but I like the Asian inspiration, and it is a bit of a booktube darling, so I'm very curious what I'm going to think about that one, so I'm excited to read that in April. And then for our science fiction month in May, we are going to be reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. I've read one Octavia Butler before, and I enjoyed it. Like, I gave it 4 stars, and I've heard a lot of good things about Parable of the Sower, so I'm very intrigued to see what I'm going to think of that one. Okay, moving on to fantasy. First one that I have on my fantasy list is Flamefall by Rosaria Munda. It is the 2nd book in the Aurelian cycle. It's the sequel to Fireborn, which, Like I said, I read in March. I loved it, and I'm super excited to read Flamefall. It just came out last week, and so this was kind of a last minute addition. I had to rearrange my TBR multiple times in March as things kept changing as far as what I wanted to read. But I'm going to be doing this as a buddy read with my friend Alan from the Library of Alexandria. I will link his channel below if you don't know Alan. He's great. He's hilarious. If you like booktubers that are funny and really energetic and just like really passionate, you should definitely check out his channel because that's Alan. If you want to know some more of my thoughts about Fireborn, I talk about it a little bit in my last couple of videos. And my reading vlog are like my beginning thoughts. The next book on my list is Malice by Heather Walter. This one is a fantasy. I'm actually not sure if it's YA or adult, but it's a fantasy and it's kind of a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but from like the villain's point of view. I'm gonna be reading this because it is one of the books I requested off of NetGalley or Edelweiss, I think NetGalley, and I got an advanced reader copy of it. This one sounded really intriguing because it's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but from the villain's point of view, and I think Sleeping Beauty falls in love with the villains. So it's like a sapphic romance or something. That sounded really intriguing. I have no idea what I'm going to think of it. I believe this is a debut, so I have nothing to base my expectations on, but I thought it sounded interesting and I got approved for an e-arc, so I'm gonna prioritize it and try to read it really soon. The next book that I want to talk about is The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington or Islington. I'm not sure how to say his last name. This has been on my TBR, like my nebulous TBR, for a while because I've heard it recommended for people who enjoy Wheel of Time, which obviously is me. It sounds like it has a lot of elements that I really enjoy. I heard it has like a chosen one trope. So this is actually going to be the shelf space book club pick for April, and I am actually going to be a co-host, which I'm super excited about because if you've been watching my channel lately, you know I've been trying to participate in a lot of the Shelf Space book clubs, and I've really enjoyed it. Shelf Space is run by my friend Jessie May. So the book club is reading this book, which is adult fantasy, in April, and then at the end of April, beginning of May, we'll have a live show where Jessie and I will discuss it. And I'm very curious how we're gonna feel because Jessie and I have some overlapping taste and some not overlapping taste, which, you know, honestly is the case for most people, right? One of the books that we don't agree on is The Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time. And considering that this book is recommended for fans of the Wheel of Time, I have no idea if she's going to end up enjoying it or not. So it'll be really interesting, and I'm just excited for a reason to finally read this book that I've been interested in for so long. Next, the two books I want to mention are Mad Ship and Ship of Destiny by Robin Hobb. These are the second and third books in the Live Ship Trader series. I just finished Ship of Magic the other day, the first book in the trilogy, and I absolutely loved it. I'm not going to talk about it here because I've gushed about it in other videos that may or may not be out already. There is currently a read-along happening in March. They're reading the first book, basically one book a month. So in April, we're going to read Mad Ship, and in May, we're going to read Ship of Destiny. And I'm really looking forward to just binging this trilogy because I love Robin Hobb. I know that if it wasn't for this read-along, I'd be stretching it out over many months, so I'm excited just to read it all in one go. So those two books will pretty much definitely be happening because I'm super excited about them. Okay, the next fantasy book on my TBR is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I have yet to read any John Gwynne, although I will go ahead and say here that Malice is also on my TBR, but I'll talk about that in a second. So Shadow of the Gods is John Gwynne's new series that he's starting. It's totally unrelated to his Malice series. I mean, the name of that series is not Malice, it's The Faithful and the Fallen. The first book is Malice. But it's unrelated to that series. There's dragons. It's like Norse inspired. It's basically all I know, but I have friends that love The Faithful and the Fallen series, which is why it's also on my TBR because I really want to read it. But I went to NetGalley and requested an advanced reader copy of The Shadow of the Gods, just like hoping that maybe they would approve me, and they did. So I'm super excited to have an e-arc of this, and I'm gonna read it very soon. And then, of course, that leads me into Malice by John Gwynne. I don't know if I'm really gonna get to this in the next few months, but I wanted to put it on my TBR just in case, because I do really, really want to read it. Like I said, I've got a bunch of friends who love this series, and I know Elle wants to read it soon too. I think she might have put it on her April TBR. So if she reads it soon, I might try to read it with her. I don't know. timing is weird. We'll see what happens. But I wanted to put it on my TBR in case I decided to read it. This is another one that has like a chosen one trope. It just has a bunch of things in it that sound like things that I would like. I've just heard really good things. The next 3 books are also because I went on that NetGalley rampage that I mentioned. So I went to NetGalley and I saw a book called A Master of Jinn by P. Jelly Clark. And I've heard a lot about this author, and so I was like, you know what, let me request that. Turns out it's part of a series and it's the 3rd installment in the series. Granted, the first 2 are like it's like a prequel novella and like a short story, so they will be very quick reads, but I, of course, had to put those on my TBR as well. So first comes A Dead Jinn in Cairo, which I believe is a novella, and then you have The Haunting of Tramcar 15, which I think is really short, like 40 pages, so more like a short story. And then the one that I got the e-arc of, A Master of Jinn, is actually a full-length novel. I am really excited to be reading these. Like I said, I've heard a lot about this author. I've heard that he writes really good characters and world building is cool, so definitely excited about those. The next book on my TBR is Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo. This is the 2nd and final book in the King of Scars duology. It's the Nikolai duology. I don't know if I'll get to this. I don't plan on buying it, so it kind of depends on if my library gets a copy in and if I can get my hands on it before the season is over. But if I can get my hands on it, I want to try and read it because it is one of my most anticipated releases of the year, and I couldn't not put it on my TBR. Like, I want to read it. I'm not sure if I'll be able to squeeze it in, but I sure as heck am gonna try. And then the last fantasy book on my list is another advanced reader copy that I got from NetGalley, and this one sounds super interesting, and I don't feel like a lot of people have talked about it, at least not that I have heard. It's called Nature of Witches. This is by Rachel Griffin. And this one sounds like a contemporary fantasy, maybe even a little bit like post-apocalyptic. Let me see what Goodreads says. Just fantasy, YA, witches, paranormal, young adult paranormal, urban fantasy, romance. Not that Goodreads is great at, telling you what the genre of a book is or anything. Anyways, this one sounded really interesting to me because it's about witches who can use their powers to control the weather, and they've kind of been dealing with like climate change, but then I think some of their powers kind of stop working as well, and they're dealing with weather stuff. The part that caught my eye of the synopsis was the very end of it. It says, practical magic meets Twister in this debut contemporary fantasy standalone about heartbreaking power, the terror of our collapsing atmosphere, and the ways we unknowingly change our fate. And I definitely find books that involve like climate change interesting. I guess I can't say I've read a ton of them, but it is kind of like a buzzy word for me, and I just thought that sounded really interesting, so I requested it on NetGalley, not really thinking that I'd get approved, but I did. So I'm definitely gonna try and read that one before it comes out so I can tell you guys what I think of it. Okay, moving on to the science fiction books on my TBR. I'm so sorry this video was so long. There's just so many things I want to read. It is such a struggle to want to read all the things and know that you can't possibly fit it all in. First on my list is The Toll by Neil Shusterman. This is the 3rd and final book in the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. It's been on my TBR before, and in fact I technically have started it, I think in February. I am buddy reading this series with my husband, and timing wasn't working out for both of us to be able to read it in February, so we put it down. But next week I am going on a little bit of a vacation. He and I rented like a little cabin in the woods. I don't know if it's really in the woods, and we're just gonna spend a week together doing nothing. Well, I mean, I'm going to be reading, we're going to be going on walks, hopefully going to be filming videos out there because, like I said, I've really been struggling to make videos lately. But anyways, one of the things on our list is to listen to The Toll, the last book in the Arc of the Scythe series. So I'm pretty sure that one is happening, and I'm really excited about it. Okay, the next 2 books on my list are Network Effect and Fugitive Telemetry. Fugitive Telemetry is the newest Murderbot book. These are by Martha Wells. And I got an email from the publisher. It was a generic email, but like asking, if you want an arc of this, like give us your address. So I filled out the form and I gave them my address. I have yet to receive the book. I don't know if I'm actually going to get it. I have no idea, but because I might be getting it, I wanted to put it on my TBR. But I also haven't read the one that comes before it, which is a full-length novel, which is Network Effect. If I get an advanced reader copy, a physical one, which I've never gotten a physical advanced reader copy directly from a publisher before, so that would be really exciting. So if that shows up, then I'm gonna need to read it, and I'm going to need to read Network Effect. But if I don't end up getting it in the mail, then I probably will not read Network Effect and put it on a later TBR, because I do want to read it. I just, you know, this TBR is very full. So those two kind of depend on if I end up getting that in the mail or not. I also have Nemesis Gates by James S.A. Corey on this list. If you guys have been following my channel, you know I've been reading through the Expanse series, and this is, I think, the 5th book. The 9th and final book comes out, I think, in October, so I'm trying to like catch up before that one comes out. I think if I read one Expanse book every other month, I'll be able to get caught up in time. Okay, and then we are almost done. I have 2 more books, one mystery thriller and one nonfiction. So the mystery thriller that I have on my list is the new Riley Sager book that's coming out. It's not coming out until June, but I'm planning to read it, I think, in May. It is called Survive the Night. Honestly, I don't know what it's about, but I have loved every Riley Sager that I've read so far. I think he has 4 books out, and I've read 3 of them. The only one I haven't read, I think, is his first book, The Final Girls, but the other 3, I gave them all 5 stars. If I didn't give them all 5 stars, the ones that I gave 4 stars were like really high 4s. Like, I have thoroughly enjoyed every single, well, all 3 of his books. So I was super excited about his new one coming out. My friend Rachel from The Shades of Orange, I will link her channel below, and I have been reading, like buddy reading a lot of his books together. We both got advanced reader copies from NetGalley. Well, at least I got mine from NetGalley. I don't know where she got hers. But we both have early copies, and we want to read it before it comes out. So we're planning to read it together, buddy read it, in May. And I'm super excited about it, because we always have so much fun buddy reading Riley Sager books, because they're so twisty-turny. It is just always such a fun reading experience. I definitely recommend buddy reading Riley Sager books. I think they're so fun to read with someone else. And then the last and 25th book on my TBR is actually my work book club book. And like I said, this is my nonfiction book, which is definitely a genre that I don't read very often. But at work recently, we had a little webinar about like work-life balance, especially, you know, in the time of COVID and everything. So there is this nonfiction book called Dropping the Ball by Tiffany Dufu, I think is how you say her name. Basically, it's about like trying to balance all the things. I do think it's targeted more towards women, because I think she talks about, you know, being a mom and stuff. But it's basically about how everybody's human, and like you can't do all the things. Sometimes you have to drop some balls so that you can keep other balls in the air, like a juggling metaphor, whatever. Anyways, we watched like a little TED Talk thing that she did, and then had a webinar about it, and it was really interesting, and my book club wanted to read her book. It's nonfiction, so it should be pretty quick. It's not something that I would typically be picking up, but that's what I like about my work book club. A lot of times it gets me to pick up books that I wouldn't read otherwise, and sometimes I end up really enjoying them. Sometimes I don't, but sometimes I do. All right, guys. Those are the 25 books on my spring TBR, some of which I've already finished, which is great, many of which I will never get to, but I couldn't narrow down the list anymore. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I know it's really long, and it's just like a list of things that I hopefully want to read. Let me know down in the comment section if you have read any of these books, and if you recommend them. Maybe I can bump them up my priority list. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.